Hello and welcome. I'm Kamla. The second Palo Alto International Film Festival was held in September 2012. This 4-day festival featured films as well as talks and interviews with filmmakers. In today's show, we bring you 2 interviews. The first is with animator cum director John Kars. He talks about his film Paperman. This Walt Disney animation short film blends old and new technologies in surprising ways. A second interview is with Adam Russell and John Sears, who talk about their collaborative feature-length crowdsourced game called Renga. This unusual project is the first 100-player collaborative laser game for cinema screens. Their work, as they put it, is a mix of films, video games, and theatre. And what is the name of your company?
It's called Wall 4.
And I was thinking 4 walls.
Yes. Well, it is a reference to the fourth wall, which is a theatre term, really, referring to the wall at the front of the stage between the performers and the audience. So breaking the fourth wall means interacting with the audience. And our business is all about audience interaction. That's why we're called that.
And so you have started this film, or actually produced this film called Renga, which is derived from a Japanese term.
That's correct, yeah. So the term Renga is really about a collaborative form of poetry, which is put together by 100 people. Each one of the 100 people write a different verse. And our film, or our game, is also called Renga. We've taken our name from that. Because during our show, 100 people or more collaborate to produce something over the course of the 70-minute experience.
70?
About 70 minutes, yes.
17 or 70?
Sorry, 70.
70. That's long.
Yeah. We had made a number of smaller pieces of content before this show, and we had 2 goals really when we designed it, which was can we support 100 people, and can we make it feature length? And feature length for us just meant over an hour, basically. So those were our 2 key goals. To see whether it was possible to make a show that could be programmed in a cinema alongside other films, and you could just buy a ticket for Renga and just go and see a show of Renga.
So explain to us what is Renga? Is it a film, or how do you describe it?
We always struggle to describe it, actually, because it's not quite a film and it's not quite a game, but it is a video game that can be played collaboratively in a cinema.
So it's a massive multiplayer game?
A massive multiplayer game, but where everyone is in the same room together. Most other massive multiplayer games...
So it's not distributed?
No, it's not distributed, it's not online. It's all about having 100 or 200 people together in one room to experience this.
Yeah, because we really believe that there's something very important about physical proximity with other people. You know, there's all this growth in online now, and gaming is very big on mobile devices and on the web, but there's something very important about getting together physically in a space with other people. I think that's why people go to the cinema, right? It's not because
it's a collective experience.
Yeah, it's not because the cinema has a better screen than you have at home, or because it has a better sound system. It's because you want to share that experience with a lot of other people in the same room as you.
So it's actually a hybrid experience then. It's marrying the old with the new.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And both of you have computer science backgrounds, right? So I'm sitting here and thinking, what is the software that was used, and how are you collecting all this information, the laser points? Is there's an algorithm? How does it work? And you are into massive, computing, right?
Yeah, so we have quite varied backgrounds in that we both had a lot of experience from working in the games industry. But you're correct that we do come from a computing background. I have a computer science degree and master's, and I did study for a PhD, which was in computer vision, and that's the technique that we use in Renga and in Wall 4 generally to actually capture these points. So when we go into a cinema, we actually install a whole set of equipment that we've custom built ourselves, a camera and several PCs and a whole selection of custom software. That all works together using computer vision algorithms to detect the laser points on a screen.
So is it like a Kinect?
Not really. The Kinect is camera based, so it is like that, but it's quite a different type of technology. It's still vision based.
So how many cameras do you have in a theatre?
Just one.
One?
Yeah. But it's an important difference from something like the Kinect is that PlayStation Move, Microsoft Kinect, and the iToy before that, and the Wii are really about getting the players to perform in front of a camera, to stand up in front of your TV at home and wave your arms around and feel a little bit foolish. Now, people aren't going to want to do that in public, right? You might do that with a few friends at home, but you're unlikely to want to do that with 100 people, many of whom are strangers. So, by pointing our camera at the screen and tracking the positions of lasers on the screen, we actually create a very safe environment for the audience to play in, because the room is relatively dark and nobody's looking at you, and our camera isn't looking at you, but you're able to express yourself in some way on the screen through your laser.
So how did it looks like you must have had a bunch of use cases on how you wanted to capture people's reaction and how you wanted to capture in the interactivity. So is that how you settled on the camera being, looking at the screen?
Yeah, so
what were some of the crazy ideas you tried?
Sure, so when we started, it was really about, we thought this technology would work using laser pointers, 20 or 30 people using laser pointers, pointed at a screen, and they would have some way of interacting with something on the screen, some visual aspect. And we built a whole set, or a whole suite of different tools and experiences in the early days of Wall 4. Things like an interactive jigsaw, when 20 or 30 people would solve a jigsaw puzzle together. Or we built interactive wallpapers, where it was just a kind of a background where people could make swirly lines on it. Or we built things like quizzes or voting mechanics or all sorts of crazy stuff.
We went through a period where we were doing rapid prototyping, where we made a prototype a day. And we each made a prototype a day, working separately. So we made 10 different experiments in 1 week.
And then how did you test those experiments?
Well, to begin with, it was with friends, really. So we would have private showings. So to begin with, a very, very small group would get 20 of our friends in a room together, set up a projector, set up our equipment, and just let them play. And we would watch them to see which of the ideas worked and which ones didn't. When we got around to building something larger, like Renga, we had a bit more of a formal structure to that.
We had done some public shows by that point, because after the friends and family tests, we started to show some of the things we'd made, and we got some feedback from that and learned some things about doing shows, and that was then the point at which we started designing Renga.
So that was a 4-week period, and we developed Renga initially for a games festival in the UK called Game City. We knew it was going to be 100 people. We knew it was going to be in a large tent in the centre of Nottingham city centre, and we knew it was going to use our technology to do that, and that it would be feature length. So what we did was we used an iterative structure where each week we would build a new version of Renga. We would get 40 people who were actually old students of ours. We used to be academics prior to this, and they would play the game each week, and we would see how it would break down. And then for the next week, we would make a new version. So we did that 4 times in rapid succession.
So how does it work? So is it one film that 100 people watch, and then they use their lasers and they push the narrative along? It's a ship, right?
Yeah, it's exactly not that, actually. We are not using filmed footage in any way in the show. So there is no pre-shot footage in the show. It's all real-time rendered.
So we are rendering real time as we're watching.
Yeah.
As we point the lasers.
Yeah. Well, we have There's two main parts to the backstage stuff. We're capturing data about the input the crowd are making, but we're also rendering a live computer graphic image. So it's the visual style is actually very abstract, kind of retro computer graphics, as you might have seen in the early 80s. And that's being real-time rendered in the projection room.
So this is very exciting. You're capturing data in real time and then using that data to render computer graphics, which we think we're actually watching a movie.
Well, no, it's not. It's not. The graphics are not the kind of CG you might think of today, where there's an aspiration to photorealism and these recreations of scenes at people, places. It's absolutely nothing like that. It's really visually it's referencing the early arcade games of the late 70s and early 80s. Very abstract, kind of crazy worlds that are not very representational in the sense that is typical in film.
So it's 1970s.
It's sort of Tron era styling.
It's very retro in its aesthetics, which is pretty apt given that Atari were from here. So it's that sort of style.
Is there anybody else doing what you guys have done? Any studios have done this?
So not to the same level that we've done it to. So people have put video games into cinemas before, and they do that in a number of ways. They might take an existing Xbox game or PlayStation game and put that in the cinema for 1 player or 4 players. So they've done that kind of thing. And other people have tried to create small experiences which are played by a large number of audience members. So Pong, for example, they might take Pong and allow that to be controlled by 2 halves of the audience. No one has really tried to make a longer form experience, something that would last 60 or 70 minutes, to replace movies. It sits alongside movies, rather than these kind of Pong examples are kind of pre-movie.
Yeah, I mean, because we're engineers and we've created a bunch of technology to do this. Sometimes people think that we're about the technology, that's our focus, but it's not really. What this is about for us is the design of the content, and the idea of a long form game that's over an hour long for 100 people is what's key here, really. The laser tracking technology is just a way to enable that to happen. It's okay to make noise, and in fact it's important that you make noise in the theatre and that you talk to each other or shout at each other and laugh and cheer, and it gets really lively and raucous, and that's a big part of the show.
You have majored in philosophy.
That's true, yes. I nearly said that earlier when you were saying that we're both computer scientists.
Yeah.
So John started out in computer science, but I actually studied philosophy and psychology originally.
So you don't subscribe to the Hobbesian notion of the world, because you're not looking at alienation, you're looking at how people can come together using technology in some ways, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, my background between that beginning and working in games was actually AI research. So I do have a master's in computer science, specifically artificial intelligence, and that's what I was doing in the games industry for a number of years. And what I got really interested in simulating societies in computer simulations is how we interact in our own society. I think I'm just fascinated by social dynamics and whether they're real or simulated. And sometimes you can have a really interesting mix of artificial systems and real people working together in a system. And these are the sorts of things that computer games are well suited to exploring. And that's why we're working in this area.
So what is it that excites you when you come to Silicon Valley? This is where this is the technology mecca. This is the Rome.
Yes.
This is the Vatican.
Yes.
Should I say the Vatican of technology?
Yes, definitely. Well, this is the home of computer games in a number of ways. It's very famous for Atari being born just down the road from here. And the other kind of person in competition with Atari at the time was Ralph Baer, who also comes from the same area. And actually, when we were here a couple of years ago, we come every single year to Silicon Valley, to San Francisco more particularly, to go to the Games Developers Conference, along with 20,000 other games developers from around the world. Well, a couple of years ago, we actually made the pilgrimage to the Computer Museum, which is just down the road in
Mountain
View. Yeah.
And we got to see some of these kind of early relics, like the original Pong machine and Ralph Baer's original brown box. And so to us, these are kind of really historical items, even though they were only built 30 or 50 years ago.
Yeah, the Computer Museum visit we made 2 years ago was very inspiring, actually, because seeing those early cabinets that were hand built with like handwritten signs on them that had been stuck on by the guys making them. I really relate to that because we've had to kind of jury rig what we're doing out of nothing, because we're creating a new thing that doesn't exist. But we're sort of trying to see where it's going and what could become of it. You know,
Would you ever want to move here?
Well, yeah, I do love San Francisco and the Bay Area. It's appealing. I don't know. It would be difficult because, you know, family and what have you. But it is one of my favourite places in the world.
And thank you for watching. We'll be back with another show next week. Until then, goodbye.